The game of baseball has undergone a ton of change in the 21st century, and one of the biggest changes that has happened is the way the game is played on the field and in the front office of all 30 Major League Baseball teams. This change was in part started by the 2002 Oakland A's, who decided to value stats like on base percentage and slugging percentage more than batting average and runs batted in. By doing this, the A's were able to compete with teams who had triple their payroll and make it to the playoffs a couple of times in the 2000s. Since then, the philosophy of front offices around the league has completely changed. Why is that? The statistic batting average is a very basic measure of success. It's calculated by dividing the amount of hits a player has by their number of at-bats. In Major League Baseball, well over 95% of qualified players have a batting average value of between 200 and 350. It's not the best way for determining offensive success because of many different reasons, which I'll explain now. Batting average is only good at finding out the rate of hits a player gets. It has nothing to do with the type of hits they're getting, whether it be singles, doubles, triples, or home runs. It tells basically nothing about how valuable the hits a player gets are to scoring runs, which is obviously how you win games. Batting average doesn't tell you how much a player gets on base. A walk and a single are the same when the bases are empty, which is the case the vast majority of the time. For example, Tigers outfielder Riley Green is batting 230 on the season, but has an on base percentage of 333, which is well above the average. Because of this, the Tigers can score more runs due to him being on base. Contrast him with Astros catcher Yainer Diaz, who, despite having a much higher batting average than Green at 260, has a dreadful on base percentage of 292. Unsurprisingly, it's Riley Green who has scored a lot more runs. I know they hit in completely different spots in the order and are on different teams, but the point still stands because the Astros offense is way better than the Tigers. Another huge reason for batting average not mattering is something I talked about a minute ago with the value of the different types of hits you can get. This is where the stat slugging percentage comes into play. It's calculated by taking a player's total bases and dividing by their number of at-bats. It's basically like saying bases per at-bat. This is important because it better estimates how valuable a player is to a team scoring runs. Home runs are better than singles, and this is what slugging percentage tells you versus batting average, which values them both equally. Take Astros shortstop Jeremy Pena, for example. He has a 318 batting average and a 448 slugging percentage. Both are great values for each stat. But a guy like Aaron Judge, who's hitting 280 but slugging 637. Judge has a significantly worse batting average but is considerably better than Pena in essentially every other offensive stat. The stat runs batted in, or RBI for short, is also a pointless stat and is dependent on what team a player is on and what situations they are in. A player on the Dodgers is way more likely to have a high RBI total than someone who's on the Rockies, for example. Luis Arias, who's a pretty good hitter all around with an OPS of 784 this season, has only 12 RBIs as of May 26th. It's because he bats leadoff and played half his season on the Marlins, who have a terrible offense. Marcus Semien, on the other hand, has a much worse OPS at 749, and yet has nearly triple the amount of RBIs that Arias has, and he bats leadoff too. Arias has been a lot more productive in creating runs according to Fangraphs. On base percentage, slugging percentage, and OPS, which is those first two stats combined, are good stats, and much better than batting average in my opinion, but there's many more advanced stats that are good at capturing a player's production in one number. The best of them may be WRC plus, or weighted runs created plus. It takes the value of weighted runs created, which is an estimate of how many runs a player has created for their team in a given season or for their whole career. What the plus means is that it averages out to the league offensive environment and stadium factors. For example, since Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati is a lot smaller than Chase Field in Arizona, hitters who play in Great American might just have better surface stats like OPS and slugging percentage. The plus normalizes their stats to the league average park and run environment and makes 100 average. There's a lot more to talk about it when it comes to the value of different stats, but these are the best reasons I can explain why batting average and runs batted in don't matter. They are narrow-minded stats that don't really do a great job at illustrating player production, and there are simply better stats that take in more factors and provide a more complete understanding of player value.